Oh, it is live. Sorry. Taking ages to come on, I wasn't sure. Happy Halloween, everyone. So, right, this is my live Halloween special. It'll say it's a premiere, but this is actually live at the minute. There's a couple of differences to what was going to happen. Yeah, it's quite odd. I'll explain it all as we go along, but we will still be watching you lot's clips and stuff. Yeah, so why is it different? Right, this isn't how I was going to do it originally. What I was going to do is just have all the clips sent in and sort of do a long video and just put that on. The weirdest thing of all, though, no one actually sent any in. So a lot of people said they was going to send them in, but I didn't actually get sent any by email. This is the weirdest thing ever, right? I didn't get any. So all the people who said yeah, and even said, sort of said yes, I have sent them, I didn't get any. So I nearly cancelled this. I thought, well, what's the point then? No one obviously wants to join in. But it was weird because people kept saying they had, and I kept saying, well, I haven't got the footage. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. Not a cold or anything, but it's kind of, you know me. So anyway, today I get a box in, the post, and that is what was in it. Right, let me move my bottle. These are what was in it. I don't know whether you'll be able to read that, but that's actually the videos you lot sent me. I genuinely have no idea who sent me that. All it was a box with all of those videos in, with all of you lot's footage, and whatever the fuck this is. Now, the only thing I can think of, it must be either some kind of joke, like a prank thing. Not a prank. This is obviously someone who knows my address and knows I was doing these videos. So it's one of the regulars, basically. Although, as I say, I've got no idea what that is. Target, maybe. Maybe it's some kind of joke to do with the shooting competition that didn't get done this year. Anyway, so yeah, that was very strange in its own right. So now I've only got videos to play. But what I've managed to do, this is where this comes in. I've managed to set up, I had to set this up so I could watch them myself, because I had to see what was on the tapes, obviously. Because, I knew what like WS93 was and SAK94, but, some of them don't really make a lot of sense. Some of the lettering. So I've set this up. It's a video player and a TV. Oh, by the way, if you don't know what these are, some of you may not even know what these are. These are tapes, and that's how you used to watch films years ago. So what I've done, how this is going to work, is a wire comes out of this video recorder. There's two, one into the telly, so that'll play for me. One goes into this, I don't know if you can see it, it's a AV to HDMI upscaler with a switch on it. So this goes to the same thing what the camera is on. So they both split at that point. So what happens is, I put a tape in, flick the switch on this, and then that will be the main feed. So you will then see these VHS tapes. By the way, sorry I'm not replying to any comments or anything, because obviously I'm talking to you at the minute and I can't actually see any the way I'm doing this. At the minute, the only comments I can see are on my phone. So hello everyone, by the way, who's on. Looks like there's a decent amount as well. I can only reply during this scenes, because at the minute I'm literally looking at the camera. I'm not doing my normal setup. This isn't a webcam. This is actually my camcorder. So both of those go into the computer. So yeah, in a minute we'll get going. I've worked out from these videos, and if I talk between them, this video potentially will go on for around about 2 hours, I think, depending on how long I talk, you see, between each bit. Because what I'm planning to do, put one on, watch it, you know, we'll talk about it, yeah, and I can chat with you between the, you know, while the footage is on, I can then get my phone up. So yeah, get settled in, get yourself a drink. I've got my old coffee and I might have something else later, when it gets a bit later on. And yeah, hopefully this should be a good show. So each of these tapes has numbers. It has numbered things on. So it's actually got 1 PCF1, 2 R and R, whoever they are, and for each one, you know, it's in order basically. So yeah, I think we'll get down to it. So what I'll do, I'll put a tape in. I won't put it right in because it will start playing as soon as I push this right in. So what I'll do, I'll flick the switch and then you will see that footage. Right, ready?
Well, hello everyone, this is Pistol Crossbow Fan, and I thought I'll share with everyone a story, well not really a story, but the events that my brother and I witnessed some years ago, which to this day I can't quite work out what it was all about really. So I'll get started. Just to set the scene, it's 1985 or thereabouts. My brother and I both living at home. We lived at the time in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight. Ventnor is on the south coast of the island. And he had just bought himself, a few months previous to this, a little car. I think it was his first car. Anyway, it was a Mini, and black Mini if I remember correctly, and he'd spent quite a lot of time getting it running nicely and doing the inside out and putting a new dashboard in, etc. And he'd made a really nice job of it. So what you do when you buy your first car and it's all up and running, of course, is drive everywhere just for something to do. On this one evening, which was sort of mid to late summer, as I say, 1985 or thereabouts, we both went out for a ride in his new car, and we decided that we would go from Ventnor along what's called the Undercliff towards St Lawrence and Knighton, and then perhaps on to Blackgang and do like a little circuit back home again. We set off, I guess, probably about 6:30 in the evening. So that's what we did. Being the time of year and the time of day, obviously nice and light outside still. So we just set off and started on our route. We started driving through the Undercliff towards St Lawrence. For those of you that don't know that area, it's quite tight, windy roads. Lots of overhanging trees. And the type of road meant that basically you can't go very quickly. So I guess we were doing probably no more than 30 miles an hour. All these overhanging trees made it a little bit darker than everywhere else. However, he didn't have his lights on, and that's quite important. It was still plenty light enough to see what you were doing without putting the car headlights on. Anyway, we're driving along, and as far as I can remember, he put a new cassette player in his car, and I think we were listening to Dire Straits. the new album that had just come out, because he was into Dire Straits. So we're driving along, not really saying anything, just enjoying the ride, taking it all in, listening to this music. And as we approached a little old church that came up just with a few steps directly off of the road, there was a gate and a hedge either side of that gate, and then the church just beyond that. As we approached that from maybe, I don't know, 50 yards away, something like that, as I say, not going very quickly, neither of us talking, all of a sudden, from this entrance into the church and onto the road, stepped out what I can only describe as a huge, and I mean huge, black, shaggy dog shape. To say it was black is an understatement. If you said it was actually an outline of something, and inside that outline it was completely devoid of all light, that's how black it was. Anyway, it was walking leisurely out onto the road and across the path that we would very shortly cross ourselves, and stopped in the middle of the road. It must have realised that something was coming towards it. It turned and looked at us, and the expression on its face was, well, it wasn't a dog at all. It had much more human-like features, but it was just the look on its face. When it realised that we were coming towards it and we'd seen it, it was like, almost like a snarl, and it seemed to be thinking, what on earth do you think you're doing looking at me? It was hideous. Anyway, it probably stood like that for half a second, maybe a second, looking at us with absolutely fiery red eyes. They were like little LED lights, its eyes, and that's why I'd mentioned earlier that we didn't have the headlights on, so there was no reflection from the car in its eyes. They were just burning red eyes. Anyway, it then turned its head in the direction that it wanted to go, continued to walk across the road at a reasonably slow pace, and then just disappeared up into the trees the other side of the road, and it was gone. By which time we had passed the spot where it had been stood in the middle of the road. We went a little way past that, and one of us said to the other, and I can't remember to this day who it was, but one said to the other, "Did you just see what I saw?" And the other one said, "Yes." "What was it?" "I don't know." "Wasn't very nice, was it?" "No." "Should we go a bit quicker?" "Yes." So we did. We speeded up to the best of our ability, given the type of roads that we were on, and came out of the undercliff and actually found a pub in, I think it was in Knighton, and just went and sat in there and had a soft drink each, trying to decide what we'd seen. And then obviously came back a different route. To this day, I do not know what we saw. All I know is that we both saw it at exactly the same time. There was no talking about things like that previously. And yeah, that's my story. I've since done internet research to see if anyone else has seen anything like that in that area, and I can't find anything about it. However, there's plenty of accounts of huge black dogs with fiery red eyes that appear, well, certainly in the UK, at lots of different locations over the years. one of them dating back to sort of 200 or 300 years ago, when apparently one of these beasts forced open the doors of a church where there was a service in progress and killed a couple of the parishioners before turning round, only to find that the doors of the church had swung shut on it. And to this day, from what I understand, you can still see claw marks in this door, because the door's original still, and claw marks where the thing was clawing at the door and eventually managed to get it open. So I'm not the only person to have seen something like this. Anyway, let me know what you think, and have you experienced anything like this?
Right, I'll take that out for a minute, because when I put it back in, it will carry on playing. Yeah, that, I don't know what to say with that. That was, well, fascinating for a start. In all honesty, as many as you lot will know, I've not really what I would see as a paranormal event. I will tell you mine. What I'll do, if there's any short videos on here, because I watched this first one just to make sure what these tapes was, what I thought they were, what they were. What was I saying? If there's any short ones, I'll tell you about my paranormal experience, because I don't think it is, but you can be the sides of that. Yes, pistol crossbow fan. That's fascinating, and I don't know, that seeing that kind of stuff, because I've never seen anything like that. The only way I can say it, that must be fucking freaky, basically. Don't know, could you imagine that? Yeah, and the fact that the church wasn't actually there. Very weird. But, you know, it makes the whole thing even more bizarre, doesn't it? Yeah, I must admit I do love a good, especially a true paranormal story. Fascinating stuff, really. Yeah, thank you for that, pistol crossbow fan. That was very good. So, sorry, I'm just going to drink a bit of my coffee. Sorry, as I said, I can't reply to your comments, but as soon as I come back, you know, as soon as the next one's playing, I'll be back on commenting again. But yeah, I wonder what that would have been. I know there's the thing, this probably been mentioned, black shuck is a thing, isn't it? Is it black shuck? Yeah. I don't know a lot about black shuck, apart from the Darkness song about it. Right, let's get another one on. So this is number 2, R&R. So I'll switch it over, then I'll press it in.
About 4 years ago I went to an abandoned World War II German bunker near a supposed nuclear weapons factory in Austria, looking for documents and equipment. We went into the skeleton of the building and found an old cage elevator. Surprisingly, the elevator worked and we went down to the lower floors. The underground was a fairly normal layout for a German bunker, but in one room had various German documents and files relating to biological weapons. That was interesting but not too creepy. However, on the lowest floor we found a room full of medical equipment and several Soviet cap badges along the desks. In one corner of the room was a dissection table with several blood-stained rags, scalpels and an empty tin of Zyklon B pellets. It's fair to assume they were testing on Soviet prisoners and that we were witnessing a secret buried there for 80 years.
Well, that was a short one, but an interesting one. Yeah. Where was that then, mate? You didn't actually say. Relics and respirators, wasn't it? Well, what country was that? I'm gonna have to look afterwards. But Germany, obviously, I'd assume, isn't it? That's a bit of a stupid question, really, wasn't it? Not necessarily, but what part of the country is it? But yeah, Zyklon B. Well, we all know what that is. We won't go too much into that on a live stream. Oh, by the way, I've not covered the guns up tonight, but I'm reckoning it's so dark in here, it shouldn't be an issue. That's another weird coincidence, actually. My light isn't actually supposed to be off. As soon as I started doing this video, the fucking light stopped working. So I've had to do it in the dark. Luckily I've got some lights in that, so, well, yeah. Yeah. People have probably been saying, cover up the guns, but, yeah, doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure tonight, with how dark this is, they won't notice it anyway. Let's hope not, anyway. So, yes, as I say, I hope you're enjoying it. I'm starting to feel a little bit like the Crypt Keeper tonight. It's quite weird talking to the camera live without being able to read the comments as well, but oh well, not a lot I can do about it, is there? So, number 3 either says ZI or Z1. Right. This event took place in the mid-1990s and started when a couple of friends of mine, who were husband and wife, asked my advice about some strange things that were happening in their new flat, or apartment if you're American. They knew that I'd had an interest in the paranormal and the just plain weird since I was about 14, which was a long time ago, and thought I might be able to help them. Apparently, every night for the past week, they'd woken up by the feeling that someone was standing at the foot of their bed, staring at them. And not in a kind way, as they put it. Now, I have to admit that at this point I just put it down to their imagination. Nonetheless, as they seemed genuinely worried, I told them of a few measures they could take, all of which were harmless enough. The next week they told me that the measure I'd suggested had worked, to a degree. They no longer felt the presence at the foot of the bed. Instead it had moved to just outside the precautions I'd suggested, and now they could see a faint shape standing there, and they got the feeling it was angry. They then told me that all the pot plants they had in the flat had died overnight. Now this of course is no proof of anything supernatural, although it was strange. Anyway, they bought some more plants, but the same thing happened. The next morning the plants were dead, which shook them up to an extent that they decided to move out, and I asked myself and a couple of friends to help them get their stuff from the flat after work, as they had no intention of returning there, and were going to stay with the fellow's parents until they could find another flat. They'd get the rest of their belongings at the weekend when they could do it in the daylight. So that evening we all met up at the local McDonald's, as one of the lads had been working late and wanted something to eat before we started. I must say here that the couple we were helping seemed in no great hurry to get started. Did look a trifle nervous and kept buying us coffees. I got the feeling they were not keen to go back to the flat, to be honest. But eventually we set off and arrived at the flat. All was going well until we nearly finished. The wife and one of the lads had gone down to the car they were loading up, and which was parked a little way away because we didn't want it too close to the flat, which was a bit daft really. And there was a little left that they wanted to take away that night. So it was just me and the husband, whom I shall call Alf, and the other fella, whom I shall call Bert. We were left upstairs to collect the few remaining items. That's when things started to get weird. It began with Alf saying, I'd better take this or she'll never forgive me, picking up a framed photo of his wife. As he did so, his face went white and he muttered, "Oh fuck." He turned, showed us the photo. The frame and the glass were both intact, but the actual photo wasn't. It had 4 wide and deep scratches running down it, as if something had clawed it with their fingernails. We all immediately agreed that we wouldn't mention this to his wife, for obvious reasons, and that the photo would suffer an unfortunate accident on its way to the car. In other words, we were going to accidentally drop it and tread on it to pretty much destroy the thing. He did ask me and Bert to do the treading, but we weren't that stupid and declined the honour.
Anyway, we continued with the packing, which turned out to be a fair bit more than we'd been led to believe, incidentally. I never could work out why we needed quite that much stuff for 3 days, but there you go. And we're almost finished when Bert said, "You might have left the heating on till we finished. It's getting a bit chilly in here." Alf assured him that he hadn't turned off the heating, but that yes, it did seem a bit colder than before, and they were right. It did seem colder than before. Still, we carried on and had just got the last item in the box when the temperature suddenly dropped significantly. That was enough for me, and I said, "I think we should go now," and walked rather quickly to the door. Alf and Bert obviously agreed with me, as they were right on my heels. Anyway, we took the box to the car, with Alf remembering to have the accident, and resulted in a conversation with his wife as to why he was a clumsy idiot. A conversation which lasted until they reached his parents' house, apparently. Bert and me saw them off, and went to collect his car, which was parked in front of the flat, which is when things got really weird. As we reached the car, we both glanced at the flat's windows. Inside the flat, we could see lights. They looked like multicoloured flames of blue, yellow, red and green, and a sort of purple. We knew Alf had turned the lights off as he'd hurriedly left. Couldn't think what was causing them. No other windows, including the ones next to them, had any light shown at all. However, neither of us felt any pressing need to go and investigate. We just quickly got in the car and left. Over the next couple of weeks I spoke to people to find out if there are any stories connected to that particular area, and one interesting one came to light. It seemed there was a young unmarried girl who fell pregnant in the late 1800s. People disagree on the actual year, but it's always the late 1800s. And as was usual back then, she was ostracised, thrown out of the family home. The father denied responsibility, of course. As he came from a relatively influential local family, whose name I won't mention, the matter was not pressed. So, homeless and on her own, the poor girl went to a barn, which was just behind the flats, and hung herself. I was also told by someone who kept horses in the field in which the barn still stood, that no matter how bad the weather, no horses ever took shelter in the barn. The barn has since been demolished, by the way. Another interesting thing is that at the time they were digging up the crossroads, which are no more than 70 foot away from the flats. One other point of note is that Alf's wife was pregnant at the time, and the event started just about the time she became pregnant. So, was it the sad spirit of that poor girl trying to get some kind of spite out, and enabled to do so by the digging of the crossroads? There have been reports of strange occurrences, including poltergeists, near to such activities.
Right, I won't put that back in, I've got to play the other one. Thank you, Zed. Very interesting. Yeah, you've told us that one before, actually, haven't you? But not in that kind of detail. Here's something weird. Did you think that tape sounded like me? That was weird. Because that's not me, by the way. Maybe, you know, obviously people do sound like other people, do you know what I mean? But yeah, weird. Yeah, that story, yeah, very, very weird. There's, you know, a lot of these I'm not probably going to not know what to say. That's quite a scary one, because I could visualise all of that what was going on. You know, I'd hate to wake up having the thought that something was at the end of my bed, let alone being able to see something. Plants dying. I'll tell you what though, I never knew about crossroads being like a thing to do with paranormal. Someone will have to explain that when I come back. Whether you'll be able to tell me or not, I don't know. But yes, who knows? But yeah, I can understand why, if people experience these things, you would assume it was paranormal, because, well, it's totally unexplained, isn't it? I don't know. yeah, it's starting to be, you know, it's turned out to be a good night tonight. I'm enjoying this. I feel a bit creepy though, if you know what I mean. Not creepy, creeped out, if that makes it. Not creeped out, I don't know how to describe it, but the more you watch these things, they do get into your head a bit, I think. Especially set in the dark like this, because also no one's in at the minute. Everyone's gone out tonight. One of my other relatives is having a little party. I know people aren't supposed to be going out, but this is I've said to you about this before. Like, there's my household and my brothers and sisters. They all work, but they all have to come here anyway. So we've sort of got 3 different households that have to intermingle anyway. So if they have to, you know, it doesn't matter if we go round their house, because it's all like one big family who live in different houses anyway, sort of thing. So yeah. So yeah, no one's actually in tonight, so I'm in on my own. Lights gone, and I'm watching bloody scary fucking stories all that. So yeah, thank you for that, Zed. I thought that was an excellent one, and yeah, it was good hearing that in more in depth. Right, so what have we got now? For WS93, so I suppose that's Liam. Right.
The strange old lady in Tesco's. I was about 5 years old and at a Tesco store with my mother. This store had chairs after the checkouts that you could sit at, while waiting for someone to do their shopping. After we got our items and while my mum was paying for them, I was sitting in the chair waiting. An old lady then walked from the shop and sat in the chair next to me, and started talking to me. She asked, "Is that your mother at the till?" and told me that bad things happen to naughty children. She made me promise I was not a naughty child and that I would not run off. I was a bit weirded out, but despite my mum looking over and checking on me to keep me safe from strangers, she did not seem to see this lady. The woman started talking more nonsense about children needing to be good, or bad things would happen. A moment later my mother came over and I told her about the lady. My mother was confused and said I wasn't sat next to anyone. I turned around and the woman had disappeared. To get past me she would have had to use the exit door to my left. Also, there are no toilets in this store and she didn't walk back past the tills. I have no idea if she was a ghost or I had a really vivid hallucination, but it freaked me out a bit.
I wonder what that was, Liam. That was proper weird. I'll put in these. Yeah, seeing as you was, did you say 5? You have told me this one before. As I say, I find all of these interesting. There have been a couple of, you know, like this one and Zed's one that I've heard before. But yeah, I don't know, what the fuck would that have been? As you say, she couldn't have walked past you anyway, or you would have seen her, and then your mum didn't see her. Yeah. Before I did this, I asked Malk whether we had any supernatural stories, but I don't have any definite ones. I'll tell you my ones. There's a couple of things that I suppose other people might class as supernatural. Weirdly enough, they all revolve around the same room in my house. Is that some kind of connection? I suppose it definitely. I nearly said I suppose it definitely could be, but you know, well, it is a connection, isn't it? But it's sort of. I don't know, because I don't believe it. This is the issue. I'll tell you what I think of these things anyway. So there's one event that's happened that actually, as far as I remember, you know, I used to drink a lot. I sometimes have slight memory issues. I'm sure Malcolm, my twin brother, if you don't know, JJR Survival, has had the exact same experience as this, and I find it quite bizarre, but I don't know what it was. Anyway, both of us, at separate times in our lives, have been asleep in our front room, or well, not asleep, saying that, just about to fall asleep. So you know when you're sat there and you're just about to fall asleep, and not smoking, so I hadn't smoked anything. I sat there, I was just about to fall asleep, and the smoke alarm went do-do-do-do-do-do-do. But just that was how long it was. It was just a do-do-do-do. And I woke up, oh fucking hell, you know, thinking, why has that done that? That is bizarre, you know. Why the fuck would the smoke alarm just randomly just go up just as you're about to go to sleep, fall asleep? But then who says you wasn't falling asleep for ages and didn't know? Anyway, a couple of minutes later, start to fall asleep again. Just as I was about to fall asleep, and again, oh god, and it scared the crap out of me because a smoke alarm's, you know, I think a smoke alarm's supposed to scare the crap out of you, isn't it? It's supposed to wake you up to get you out of the fucking house. So there was that, and also that same room. This is why I think it's not really anything. But that's unexplained. I can't explain why that happened. Maybe it's just a coincidence, and maybe it was a coincidence it happened to Malk as well. That room, whenever saying that, I started getting a little bit now, but I don't know if it's because it's leading up to Halloween and that. But sometimes when I walk past that room, only in the dark, you know, at night, I sometimes think I see things in there. But I'm pretty sure that's my imagination, because I have a very, very vivid imagination. And the issue is, quite often I'm thinking about that. I noticed, sorry, my curtain just moved then. You didn't be able to see that though, that was weird. Oh no, it's a draft, my window's open. Anyway, where was I? So sometimes it looks like there's... It doesn't look like there's anything in there, but you know at the corner of your eye you feel like there's something there. And I when we decorated that room, that stopped happening. Also, my dad died in that room recently, in April. Since then, I've not really seen or felt anything like that in there. Apart from recently, but I think that's just because it's playing on my mind and I'm sort of making it happen. Anyway, going a bit deep now, aren't I? One night, I can't remember when it was, maybe 10 years ago, maybe less. I always told myself this was just my imagination. And I still think it was my imagination, or some kind of, I don't know, just keep thinking about certain things and then you make it happen sort of thing. So I stood in my kitchen one night, just about to get some food, and looked over to where my living room door would have been. So my living room door's there, then there's a hallway in the kitchen. Looked over and I saw a full-size, human-size shadow run out of that room and run at me, and as it ran at me it disintegrated, you know, disappeared, and I sort of went, oh fucking hell. Yeah, it scared the crap out of me, but I still think there wasn't anything there. I think it was just a shadow or something, or my mind played tricks on me because it was late at night. Yeah, that was quite scary. Now, some people say that was probably paranormal. I don't think it was. You let me know. I know you'd like definitely say it is. I'll just grab a bit of coffee quickly. As I said earlier, sorry I can't read the comments. It's a bit too much sort of talking to camera, because I also, you know, try to talk to camera and tell you things properly, discuss things, make it slightly different anyway. But I can chat while the videos are playing. So yeah, that's the closest as far as I can remember to ever having any supernatural, paranormal events happen. First one I think is just a coincidence, and second one I just think was my imagination playing tricks on me. Because I have a very, very fucking vivid imagination, and I'm also highly fucking, I've got that heightened awareness shit where you can I can walk into a room and if something's been moved I can tell straight away, wherever it is. It's like a slightly paranoid thing. Yeah, and I think I just saw a bit of a shadow, and I imagined it more than what it was. Who knows? Who am I trying to convince here? You or me? What are we on to now? 5. SSW. Right, ready?
Hello, this is Slingshot Warrior, coming to you with the video for Mike on a scary story. And this has to do with a nightmare I had that I think was more realistic than I could ever imagine. You see, in this nightmare, I knew I was asleep. I was in a familiar place that I didn't like, but it was different. It was much more like a expanded, you could say, and dreamlike. And I knew I was asleep, and I was screaming, "I want to wake up. I want to wake up." Black smoke started to form on the other side of the room. And a demonic demon came out of it. Well, formed out of it, you could say. Like hooves and horns and all. Humanoid. Walking with hooves and had horns. And I realized there's no running, there's no anything. Suddenly a machete formed in my hand. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I can't get out of this. I guess I'm going to have to fight. And in this nightmare, I started cutting this creature's head off. And he kept growing back. The 4th time, I cut the creature's head off. I cut the demon's head off. Well, I was awake. That was a very vivid nightmare. And I think it was more real than anything because I was aware that I was asleep. And I was screaming to wake up before that demon appeared.
Tear Slingshot. Yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. More of a dream than an actual paranormal experience, but yeah, scary nonetheless, I suppose. We won't get too deeply into dreams because that can be a massive sort of tangent all on its own, can't it? We could do a video on that one day if people wanted to. So yeah, I hope you're having a good Halloween. I'll definitely get more into the comments when the longer videos are playing. Let's get straight on to the next one, shall we? So, hit this tape again. Yeah, so SAK94, that must be Stu.
Right everyone, this is my story for Mike's Halloween special. I've only got the one story, as this only ever happened to me once. But what happened is, in a previous house I used to live in, I'm pretty certain I saw a ghost. I was around 13 years old, and me and my brother used to share a bedroom. We had bunk beds, and he wasn't at home this night. He must have been staying around his mates or something. And the way our bedroom was set up, the beds would look out onto the hallway. So I was sitting up in bed one time, I was reading a book, and one of our pet cats was on the bed with me. And you know when a cat gets scared, it like arches its back? It done that out of nowhere and jumped off the bed and ran out the door. And as he's done that, I've sort of looked at him doing it. And as I've looked up into the doorway, this completely black, like, silhouette just walked across the doorway. looking back on it now, it wasn't like scary looking or it wasn't like threatening or anything. It literally just walked across the doorway. So as I got older, I got a bit more interested in about ghosts and that. So I looked into like the local area where I used to live, and there's a place called Northwood House, which is in Northwood Park, and the grounds used to be a lot bigger than what they are now. I guess over time they sold land off for housing development, and this house I stayed in at the time was built on the old land. Underneath Northwood House, there's at least 6 tunnels. I think most of them for like transporting goods and storage. I think one of them's like an escape tunnel because it leads to the beach. So maybe this ghost, was sort of like used to go up and down the tunnels. So that's my story. I was only 13 years old. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't on drugs or anything, and I can still remember it so clearly. So, up to you if you believe it or not. My brother don't believe me, but other people in my family think they've seen a ghost as well, so they sort of believe me. But yeah, pretty scary at the time. So I hope you enjoyed that. Cheers.
Nice one, Stu. Thank you, mate. I think you've told us that one before, haven't you? But again, a lot more in depth on this video. Yeah, again, very creepy, and a lot of, when you go into the details of these things, you do wonder, don't you? Especially, as you say, your area, there was things going on. Am I wrong, or did Pistol Crossbow fan mention something about a similar place to where you are, Stu? I can't remember if that was or not, or if I imagined that. But yeah, I don't know what I'd do with that kind of stuff. Again, there's a little bit of a theme going on there. Black sort of shadows. I've seen a sort of black shadow type thing. I guess, depending on how prolonged these things are, it depends on how much you would believe them as well, I think. See, that thing I saw wasn't even half a second. That's why I just assume it's my imagination. Because you can see shadows everywhere. I'm not trying to disprove you, ESG, I'm just saying about my one. When I go out, I've got a very vivid imagination, as I say, and sometimes I like to imagine. I used to go for walks at 12 o'clock or later down these private roads where you wouldn't see any cars or anything. There's no lampposts, and I would start imagining post-apocalyptic situations and shit like that, and maybe a serial killer stood in a garden, and then I'd end up seeing my own shadow jump. Scared the crap out of me. I see my shadow, I jump, and yeah, stuff like that. That's like a split second of what you've seen there, what I saw. If you see something for a prolonged time, I could definitely 100% understand why someone would believe it in all of these events. Yeah, I don't know what to say really. But yeah, fascinating, very fascinating. And I do like that you had a bit of the sort of history as well in there, Stu. That's good, that was. So that was 5 and 6. Just going to drink a bit more of my coffee. Don't forget to get your merchandise mugs in or t-shirt. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves as well, having a good old chat. As I said, we'll check out the chat when I can. But yeah, and the way this is being done, I actually can't see the comments. Or if I did, I'd be like this for the whole time, which would be a bit boring for you lot, I think. So I may as well just keep talking to the camera, keep everyone occupied. Let's go for another one, shall we? So this is Jim M. Now I know who that is straight away. Because as I say, some of these names I recognise, some I don't.
Good evening all. Happy Halloween. I hope you're enjoying Mike's Halloween special that he's doing. I've been looking forward to it. I'm sure it's a cracker. Here's my contribution to the pool of unusual stories that Mike's been collecting to show on this video, show on this live stream. Now, this is one story that I've taken from 7 personal experiences that I've had, that I've done my own video of, all 7 on my channel. But I thought this one might translate quite well to Mike's event, to Mike's evening. So I can probably speak a little bit more freely about it on this one actually, because there are 2 or 3 people who'd be watching my own channel who would know the person, the subject of this story, and it is a real story with real tragic consequences. Okay, right. So we go back to let me have a slurp. Hold on. Right. This is in 2009, I think. Pretty sure it was 2009. And at the time, I was living in a squat in Leytonstone in East London. And amazing years of my life, absolutely amazing. I experienced things which other people would never even think of, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm back in normal society now. But back then at the squat, you used to meet all sorts of really fascinating people. And some fucking weird ones as well. Some real fucking weird, screwed up people. I'm not quite sure where this fella sits on that spectrum. He was definitely on some sort of spectrum, I can say that much. 2009, Leytonstone, in a squat, lots of weird people around. We'll call this guy Len. We'll call him Len. That's pretty close to his real name. Now, I used to kind of keep myself to myself to an extent. Well, a lot, actually. I was there for the garden. The other residents there were all supposed artists, musicians, you know, dossers generally. But I was there for the land. I was running a community garden there. And I didn't really get very involved in much of the other stuff that was going on. Although it was a very busy place. We had a guy who used to come along, this Len. We were in East London. He was from West London. I'm just trying to think of the name of where he was from. Harrow and Wealdstone, I think it was. Harrow and Wealdstone, over West Way. So a fair journey away from us. He used to spend a lot of time there. Now, he was really, really heavily autistic. And he had 2 kids who were also very seriously affected by this. He didn't really see his kids. And the guy worked as a mental health nurse. He was very, very socially awkward. I don't think he really knew what to do with himself most of the time. And for some reason, he felt very at home over at our squat, because we had a big open area which was used for events, all sorts of events, from life drawing classes to raves, you know. He'd just come over with his laptop, sit quietly in the corner and do his work, rather than do it at home in his flat. And he had a really nice flat. he had a really nice flat over the other end of London, but for some reason he just used to come along to our place and he'd sit quietly in the corner, working away on his laptop. Occasionally chatting to people here and there, but not too much, not too much. And I got to know him reasonably well, because when there were events going on, which I wasn't really into, but I would help out at, I'd be running the bar at some sort of event or something like that. And because he was also hanging around on the sidelines, the two of us would actually chat a bit, and I came to quite like him. He was somebody who, if there was a big noisy do going on, he's somebody I'd look for, a little bit of sanity amongst all the noise and the chaos. Sorry about that, a bit wobbly. Now, he was over probably 2 or 3 times a week, spent a lot of time there. Very well known. Anybody had let him in, everybody knew him. And then one evening, this place that we were living at, it was just round the corner from the station, Leytonstone Tube Station. And Leytonstone Tube Station's got a subway which goes through to local parade of shops. And one evening, it must have been roughly rush hour, because I remember it being very busy. It was crowded. There was a lot of people around. This one evening, I went out the front of the squat, walked round towards the station to go to the shops. And as I was walking towards the station, I saw Len coming the other way. And I sort of, I was looking at the floor, but as I saw him approaching, I looked up and I tried to catch his attention, just looked at him thinking he'd look at me and see me, but he didn't. And he looked really grey. He didn't look right. He just looked really, really grey, lank. It looked like he'd just sort of crawled out of a hedge sort of thing. His hair was all wet and hanging in his face. And he didn't look right at all. So he didn't acknowledge me as he walked past. I don't think he really even properly looked up, And I thought absolutely nothing of it. I thought, oh, right, okay, when I get back, he'll be there. I'll say hello on my way back in. So I went round the shop and got me, I think it was probably Kestrel Super at the time. Got some Kestrel Super and some cat food. Was it Kestrel? Tennant's? No, I think it was probably Kestrel. Got me Kestrel Super and my cat food. Walked back round to the house. And before I went into the part of the site that I lived on, I went in through the main social area where we have the bar and the events and everything else. And he wasn't in there, which surprised me. So I walked upstairs and through the little residential bit out the back of the building, didn't pass him anywhere. Got back into the building that I lived in. And I said, has anybody seen Len? I just saw him on the way here. And everyone said, no, I haven't seen him. No. So I thought, oh, strange. God knows where he was going. Cause there was nothing else in Leytonstone that he would have been going to. If he was walking from the station towards our place, he was coming to our place. But nobody had seen him. And I forgot all about it. Didn't make anything of it at all. Just a bit odd, that's all. And then it was probably about 3 or 4 days later. I got up to make me coffee one morning, and we had limited electricity supplies there. The building I was in, we had enough electricity to do lights and laptops, fridge. That's about it, really. So when you're cooking or using a kettle, we were using the big industrial building next door. So I was in there making me coffee, and somebody came up behind me and he said to me, have you heard about our mate Len? I said, no, what about him? Well, I knew something was up, because when somebody says those words with a bit of a grave look on their face, you sort of know what's coming, don't you? I didn't know quite what was coming. He said to me he took his own life 2 days ago. Threw himself under a train. Obviously, we were all shell-shocked. The 25, 30 people who lived on this site, we all knew him, we all liked him. We were absolutely flabbergasted. Really not what we expected at all. He was a bit of an odd character. And he was, I suppose, what you could call maybe a slightly depressed sort of character, but I don't think anybody expected that sort of thing. But anyway, that was that. That's what he did. He threw himself under a tube train. It all sunk in over the next couple of days. Sort of come to terms with it, but, you know, started to piece it together in my head. And it started to occur to me, hang on, have I got my days right here? Because I'm pretty sure when I saw, looking all grey and ashen, walking from the station over to the squat that evening, I wasn't 100% sure that that wasn't after he did what he did. You know, I have to admit there is a bit of doubt there, especially with the fact that my daily tipple was of the super variety at the time. But I couldn't get it out of my head that I really wasn't sure about the timings on this. And it was entirely possible that I'd seen him walk into the gallery, his little place of refuge, sanctuary, whatever it was to him. It was something important to him, you know. Potentially after he'd actually died. And then even if not, even if I've just got my days messed up, did I see some sort of omen, some sort of portent to his death? It's something that's been reported on again and again over the centuries. People seeing what is kind of the ghost of somebody who's not actually dead yet. It seems to happen fairly often throughout history. Now, I don't know if ghosts are even real. I don't know if the paranormal's real. I'm fully prepared to accept that it might be. Who knows? Who knows? I don't like to say what's real and what's not. But it was all very strange, whichever way I look at it. Did I see him after he was dead? Did I see some sort of projection of him before he was dead? Looking pretty dead as he was walking along the road, you know. Yeah, all very odd. All very odd. Happy Halloween. I'm going to get back to watching Mike's videos. I'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Nice one, Jim. That was good, that was. Sorry to hear about your mate there. Yeah, what a tragic thing to happen. But yeah, very bizarre. Potential to have seen them after their death. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, I don't know, who knows. But as you say, that kind of thing has been reported before. Yeah, very bizarre. That's one of the ones that stumps me a bit. You know, well, what else could it be? I don't know. So I'm getting a very dry mouth like usual. Yeah. That was very interesting though, Jim. That sort of stumped me, that one. I don't know any way you could explain that really, could you? Apart from if the times was wrong, but as you say, if you reckon they weren't, you know, you definitely was after or whatever. Yeah. I like that. That was yeah, because you also couldn't tell where that one was going, if that makes sense. Not that you can tell where any of the others going, but you know what I mean. Right. CW. Let's see who this is.
Hi, thanks for joining me. For those that don't know me, my name's Carl, CW Outdoors on YouTube. I'm doing this for Mike's Halloween night special. So around me there's quite a few haunted areas, and I'm going to be in the Wombwell Woods sort of area. Now behind me, the first thing we'll look at is the infamous Convicts Tunnel. Above it is a disused railway line. Now back in the day this area was full of industry, open top mining, sandstone quarrying, etc. Full of history, and apparently, hence the name, this was built by some convicts. It's notorious for suicides, people hanging themselves with a rope from the top up there and jumping off. And paranormal teams have been in this area and up in the Wombwell Woods itself, and this area is supposed to be quite haunted, as well as up in the woods, which we'll venture up to in a minute. But yeah, this is voices have been heard, figures have been seen. Hence I'm here in the daytime because I'm on my own. Right, we'll have a mosey on up to the main woodland now. Catch you in a bit. Now, the roads that weave around the woods and outside the woods can get quite overgrown, and the trees can actually form like tunnels over the road. Now and again people have reported figures running across the road, you know, in the dead of night. Like there's one that were reported in the 1970s, I know it's a fair while back, and it even got in the local newspapers. A hooded figure with a cloak and a top hat ran across a couple that were coming home late one night, cutting through the woods, ran across the road in front of their car, and they described it as looking like Guy Fawkes, for want of a better word. So I just thought I'd stop and show you that bit round. The roads are quite quiet, and on a night very silent, so just giving you a feel. It's quite an extensive woodland. We'll go and have a look at where I normally hang out. Now in this area, a wild camper, a bushcrafter who I know, stayed overnight with a friend, hammock camping, and early hours of the morning it got obviously it's dark. Summertime I think it was when he said, and they were both asleep in the hammocks. But they could hear someone walking around the outside of the camp area what they'd made. So he jumps out of bed, out of his hammock with a torch, flashing it around, nobody about. We do get kids in that up here, but not at that time in the morning. Couldn't find anything. Gets back in the hammock and starts again. Footprints, or footsteps, you could hear crunching through the leaves and the undergrowth around the camp. He gets out, flashlight again, nothing. His mate decided he were going home, but he stayed. I think I'd have gone, to be honest. And he said later on, he could hear what he thought was children, nursery school age sort of voiced children, singing what he could only describe as a nursery rhyme. Now that would have freaked me out. He said he didn't know what the nursery rhyme was, but if you're near a kid's playground and you can hear it in the distance, kids singing it, he said it sounded like that. And we're on about early hours of the morning, so you ain't going to have no kids singing bloody nursery rhymes at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a woodland, are you? And at that point, I think I would have gone. But he didn't. He stayed all night with a machete across his chest. I think I'd have just gone and come back later. But there you go. So that's another little story in here. This looks like a bit of an old quarrying part. There's loads of what look like craters that's being used for quarrying. And I believe in this part as well, there's rumour had it that before the First World War, some of the soldiers trained here before World War One. Unfortunately, most of them, or probably all of them, never returned. So are there young spirits here looking back on better times? Because it was all a big adventure, wasn't it, until they got there. Right, we shall move on. See how dense it is here, even in October. Right, let's crack on. Yeah, so I'm now in another area of the wood, and there have been reports of the little folk. Actually, I had a pebble thrown at me one time. I think I've got it on video actually, because I'd found a tarp in the middle of the wood, and I'm panning down with my camera looking down at it, and a pebble came in from my right hand side under the tarp and bounced back out underneath. Now it weren't windy, and the tarp was about 4 foot wide, and this thing come with some velocity, so I don't know how to explain it, but there you go. What was it, that story about the unwashed children? Adam and Eve had all these children, and God wanted to come and have a look at them. So Eve starts washing them all up, making them presentable for God's visit. She runs out of time, and God comes to visit, and he looks at the children, and he gets a bit annoyed. He goes, "Is this all your children, Eve?" And she went, yeah, of course it is. And he went, "Right, all your hidden children shall remain hidden from man forever." And they reckon that's where you get your fairies and your pixies and all that from, Eve's hidden children. So just another one, there we go. We'll move on to the location now. And, well, in fact, there's another location before I get to the place where I had my incident. But do I give a shit if anybody believes me? No, I'm too old to worry, I don't care, I know what I've seen. You've just got to have an open mind these days, haven't you? If you ain't got an open mind, it's like a parachute, innit? If it don't open, it don't work. So have an open mind, guys. If you don't believe, you don't believe. But at the end of the day, it's your own opinions, innit, that count. What you think, what you experience, what you know. 12 years in the army. 15, 16 years on building sites. You know, I'm not one of these that'll go making things up just for the fun of it. But anyway, we'll get on to that in a bit. Right, come on then, let's go. Now this part of the wood, there is something here, definitely. Because my old camp, bushcraft camp, was about half a mile that way, and I always had to walk through here to reach it. There and back. And now and again you won't hear any bird song, like I can't hear any at the minute. No squirrels, which are normally ruffling through the leaves and stuff and up in the branches, and everything's really quiet. And you get that feeling, well, being in the army, you get that sixth sense that somebody's watching you. And I keep getting neck twitches and I'm looking round. But not all the time. Sometimes you walk through here and the birds, crows, pigeons, squirrels, everything are running about as normal. Just now and again, so something visits and it don't want you here. And at that point, when I get that feeling, like the hairs on the back of my neck and my arms are standing up now. So I think I probably picked a good time to come here. Or maybe not. But I have caught something on camera. I thought I was being followed at one point. I turned round and I just started taking snaps in a sort of 180-degree angle behind me. And I did pick up on some shadowy sort of figures. When I got home, I just blew it up on the computer and I thought, holy shit, what's that? But it could be a fault with the camera, it could be dust, I don't know. But one of them's a clearly defined shape that just Beggars belief and description. But there you go. Things happen like that, don't they? Or do they? I'm getting a bit... Ooh, now. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's quite dark in here already. But this goes on for quite a ways. It is pretty ancient, this woodland as well. The forestry had been in here a few years ago, and they culled a lot of the rotten trees. But we've still got a few, like that one there's a potential widowmaker in it. But yeah, this to me, yeah, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Just now and again, not all the time. So if you see anything behind me, you'll have to put it in the comments on Mike's channel. But yeah, it's since I had my incident further on up yonder, I've not come up here on a night time on my own. It's nah. I'll come in the daytime or with somebody else at a night time, but not on my own. Because I don't want to see that bloody thing again. Must have took me a year to get it out of my head, trying to work out what the bleeding hell it was. But we'll talk more about that when we get up there. So, as you can see, walking through here, you get that twitch, something behind me. And I'm like it now, so I'm going to head on up, because I don't want to be followed home by one of these things. Because you hear of that, don't they? Are you all having a good Halloween? Right, my incident. It must have been 4 years ago in the summer. I was parked in this very car park above Unwell Woods. Probably just a little bit further over to my right. But roughly the same place. And it were about 3:30, early hours of the morning. I decided, because I did a lot of cooking in the woods, I thought, yeah, get all my stuff. It'll be light, sort of 4:30ish. Get all my stuff, have a walk down in the woods, find a good spot, get set up, and, you know, film it and that. So I lands here about 3:30, 4:45, early hours of the morning. It's not quite light, not quite dark. Not a soul in sight, nobody else in this car park. As you can see through the day, it gets quite busy. I got all my camera equipment, my bushcraft kit, virtually at the side of me on this passenger chair, ready to go. And I'm just sat there relaxing for a minute, having a sip of my coffee. Put the lid back on, and I just caught something across there. You see this bun line just in front of me? Well, there's another car park just in front of that bun line, only about 50 metres or so. And let's have a look at that van there, look. Right, that bun line there, just over the other side of it, you can see the van. That's where the other car park is, so it's not a million miles away. So, I caught something out the corner of my eye, in that direction, roughly where that car is, just behind where that car is, and that line of trees, but roughly, I'd say around the area of that car to the right of it, about there. Now, what happened, you know, like you see a heat haze in the summer and the air gets distorted? Well, this was about the size of a car shape, but rugby ball shaped, and it was like a hazy distortion, and a black blob started emerging through it, and it sort of then grew to full size, about 8-9 feet tall, just a black silhouette shape. And the best way I can describe it, had some sort of cape that was flowing in the, and it started heading towards me. Now my van were pointing in that direction, luckily, and this blob of black shape, 9 foot, 10 foot tall, whatever it bloody was, I ain't got a clue, started coming straight towards me. So I've got a camera at the side of me, didn't even think of that. I weren't scared, I just thought, what the chuffing hell's that? So I whacked the headlights on and the full main beam and lit this bloody thing up. And basically it was just a huge human figure, 9-10 feet tall, completely black, apart from its head. And I'm guessing that was the reflection from my main beam headlights hitting it. And as my main beam hit this thing, it turned to my left, which is that way. Turned sharply to my left, didn't even look at me, weren't interested in me in that point, but it was heading towards me. Unless I'd have whacked them beams on it, it'd have been right up to my van. I even forgot to lock my bloody doors. So yeah, I mean, I weren't scared. I was just like, my mind was just trying to process, what the chuffing hell's that? What the bleeding hell is it? I'm thinking, 1,000 things are running through my mind. Is it a huge owl? What, the size of a pterodactyl? So this thing, when it turned left, when I zapped it with the main beam, it was just at the other side of that grass bund line there. So imagine just between the bund line and the van, it'd roughly be there. Now, its head was above the height of that van, so that gives you a good indication. And it just disappeared off to the left in a sort of jogging motion, an up and down jogging motion, down, and then I lost sight of it into these shrubs here and the footpath that leads into the main wood. Now at that point I even thought, right, I'm going to grab my camera, I'm going to follow this thing to see what it is. And then the logical Carl said, no, don't. And I turned the engine on the van and I went. I drove down the road, found like a Tesco car park and pulled up and gathered my thoughts as to exactly what I'd seen, and I just couldn't weigh it up. I mean, was it a ghost? I don't know, I've never seen one. Was it a being from another dimension? I ain't got a clue, because I ain't seen one of them either. Were it an alien? I ain't got a clue, because I ain't seen one of them either. So, to this day, I ain't got a bleeding clue what the chuffing hell I saw. I know what I saw, and it weren't real. It was just out of this world. Well, I'm saying it weren't real, it were real to me. And for it to react, so it were intelligent, for it to react to me putting the main beam on it, wasn't it? So there was some intelligence there. So I don't know, I ain't got a clue. I normally just get laughed at and say, oh, we on drugs. I don't do drugs. Obviously I weren't drunk because I'd driven here and I don't drink and drive. So to this day I haven't got a clue. Just a bizarre incident that drove me mad for weeks and weeks and months and months. And whoever I told just laughed at me. But I don't care, I've got over that now. I mean, it's 4 years ago. I know what I saw. If you don't believe me, I don't give a shit. To be honest, it's not going to cause me any harm, is it? I don't care. But there you go. So, but anyway, that's it. In a nutshell, what happened. I even got a guy who was a paranormal investigator, but he's a bushcrafter as well. And we come up here one night, and, you know, he's not one of these that says, oh, yeah, we're a ghost and this, that and the other. He does it scientifically. I mean, the first thing he did, he was looking up for power lines. I said, what are you looking for power lines for? He said, well, sometimes the EMF from power lines can actually cause hallucinations and mess up with your mind. And obviously there's no power lines around here, so it weren't that. I even brought a compass, and I was walking about with my compass to see if there were any magnetic variation or anomalies with my compass, and that were fine. However, he did say, when we were down at the bottom of the track, where that thing emerged, there's a track that leads right down to the bottom where the ponds are. And he said him and another investigator were here one winter, and it had snowed while they were in the woods, and as they come out of the woods walking back up to this car park, they saw huge footprints with like a 6-foot gap between them, and neither of them could match the stride of this thing. And that's what, when I told him my story about this huge being, that's what reminded him about that, because they were baffled as well. So I don't know, there's more things in heaven and hell, isn't there? Or heaven and earth. Like I said before, keep an open mind, because until you see something, you'll not believe it. And what I would say is, sleep tight. Good night.
Nice one, Carl. Yeah, bloody hell. There's a couple of things we've talked about on this one. Yeah, fucking hell, what could that have been? I don't know. Again, there's a theme there. Black sort of figures. Yeah. See, again, this is what I'm getting at. That was a prolonged. That was a prolonged event. Not like the thing I had half a second. It wasn't that. That was a prolonged event that you had. This is just water, by the way, if anyone asks. Yeah. What the fuck, would that have been? I don't know. As I've always said, though, I'm not a massive... It's not that I'm not a believer. I've never had any experience in it. But I believe that when someone says they've seen that stuff, they truly, have seen that stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Now, I'll tell you what as well, though, Carl. We'll go back to that. But them woods as well. They just seemed eerie, even in that footage you showed then. There's something about that weird still. Like certain parts of woods like that, like they're just still for no apparent reason. And as you say, no bird call. But even that, what I was trying to get at, even that bit of footage you showed, I don't know, it just didn't seem like a very nice place, really. Strange that places can be like that. Is it because they're, haunted or whatever? That bridge was quite a fascinating place as well. That was interesting seeing them old iron beams or whatever. Iron bars, not bars, but you know what I mean. Inside that, I've never seen that before. Yeah, what a place to be wanting to, kill yourself. Tragic, really. But yeah. Again, as I said, there's a sort of theme there for the, it's a bit of a theme for the black figures. That was the end of that one, wasn't it? So, looks like we're about halfway through there. Yeah, because that was number 8, and it looks like there's 16 altogether. But I hope you're enjoying yourselves, because I'm enjoying myself. Anyone worked out what the hell that is yet, by the way? And that's not ink on there, by the way. It looks like, well, I'm assuming it's supposed to be fake blood. Sounds a bit weird as well. I don't know. Well, I'm just assuming that's some kind of joke from one of you lot. One of the people who's got my address, but well. So yeah, what have we had so far? We've had, let me look at these tapes and we'll go over them. So we've had black figure, black almost monster on the road, and a church that didn't exist. Zyklon B stuff, which wasn't really paranormal, but not a very nice thing to experience. What else? Jim's sort of, not a premonition, sort of. No, yeah, no, it's sort of the opposite of a premonition, isn't it? Zad's potential ghost in the house and the lights. Stu's black apparition and Liam's old lady that wasn't there, and then Carl's stuff. Yeah, very fascinating. Thank you for sending these in, by the way, or well, wherever you sent them to, because as I say, I didn't get them, but I've got them now. So yeah, should we go for another one? TP.
Hi, it's Tactical Pirate and this is my bit for Weapon Collector's Halloween special. Over the years I've had a few unexplained things happen in my house, so here goes. It first happened about 20 years ago whilst doing a video message to friends on playback. There is a very distinct EVP. The voice even calls me by my name. Needless to say, I shot out of the house and didn't return for a few hours. I still have the video, but as being a dickhead on it, it's best left unpublished. Another time I came home at night and found a thick grey mist on the stairs. I originally thought a family member had started smoking again. We had both quit at the time. After finding out they weren't smoking, I went back to the stairs to find nothing was there. I have also witnessed things rise up a few inches before falling on the floor. My sister has said she saw a woman dressed in Victorian clothing standing at the foot of her bed before vanishing. Also, an ex-girlfriend of mine asked who was the old man on the stairs. I later found out the previous male tenant had passed away in the house. More recently, there has been unexplained knocking on the front door and nobody is there or on the CCTV at the time of the knocks. The most recent of all was I had just finished reading in bed and had put my book down and lay down. A few seconds after this, I felt 2 light taps on the back of my left hand, then a split second later a sharp poke to my ribs. I can honestly say there was no way on this earth was I opening my eyes to have a look. Stay safe all and happy Halloween.
Oh, God's sake, Tactical. You told me that last bit. Tactical actually told me that last bit the night it happened, or like the night after it happened. I remember on one of my Twitch streams. God, I don't know if I could live in a house like that. Could you? Well, he obviously does. Sorry, I'm laughing more out of, not because it's funny, but because it's sort of shocking, isn't it? Obviously, quite a few people didn't want to use their own voices, so there's some text-to-speech things. But yeah, doesn't matter. People like to keep their identities hidden, don't they? Yeah, there's a lot you could say about that, really. So, do you know anything more about the house then, Tactical? Because curtain's moving again, but the window is open. Yeah, I remember you telling me about the poked bit, being poked at night one night when I was doing one of my Twitch live streams, and yeah, I remember at the time thinking, oh fucking hell, I'm gonna sleep in the tent then. That's the problem though, because you say, oh, I'll just move out. You can't just move out though, can you? Yeah, bloody hell. Is it scary? Because I know some people say they have. See, I always imagine if I had some kind of supernatural, paranormal, definite event happen, I think I'd be scared. But a lot of people say they're not. Yeah, I suppose maybe it's just different, and some events are a lot more scary than others, and some don't. You know, 'cause something being knocked over not saying that happened, but say something being knocked over isn't necessarily threatening per se. It may be someone just trying to signal you, you know, contact you sort of thing. Whereas a fucking big red, horrible, red-eyed beast, jet black, that looks like going to tear you to pieces, probably is fucking scary. Yeah. I might have to do this again next year. I'm quite enjoying this. I might try and figure out a different way to do it, but well, then again, this wasn't my choice anyway with these tapes. I ain't got a lot of choice really. So, yes, this one, the next one then.
How y'all doing? I'll tell y'all about the time I was abducted by aliens. I really do believe it was aliens from another planet. Night, much like tonight, I got off work, just trying to get home, minding my own business. Kind of like this. Had a full moon out there. I don't know if y'all can see that full moon out there. And decided to take a shortcut. Had a little dirt road that went from one road to the other. kind of connecting the two L's like that, you know, coming straight across like that. I took that shortcut, and I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw it. The thing I saw had a blue light on it. Made a real high-pitched whirring sound, like a whir. As it hovered properly. Well, I'll show you where it hovered. I'll take you to the spot. We'll go take a look at it right now. It was somewhere down here. Yeah, right up there above them trees. I saw a light. I think it was a spaceship or something. It had to have been. I stopped the truck. Next thing I know, my whole body was vibrating and buzzing. My arms were tingling, my legs was tingling. Next thing you know, the door flew wide open and I felt like I was being pulled. Real fast, I was being pulled, and then there was a bright light. A bright light was all up in my face. Alright, man, I got you, man. I got you. Alright, hands on the wheel. Yeah, I only had 2 drinks, man. You're fucking with me, man. I only had 2 drinks. I'm not fucked up. Be cool, man.
Fuck's sake, Electra. I was believing that. Cheers, Dave. You can always rely on Dave to have a good laugh with you. I like that. But yes, I was believing it at first. I know you're not actually on, Dave, so you'll have to watch this. He's at a party himself tonight. I had wondered if that was something to do with you, because that's the kind of thing he would, get everyone together and do some kind of joke like that. Yeah, I ain't got a fucking clue. But yes, I know. Oh, you never know. I might have missed him in the chat, but yeah, he's supposed to be at the party tonight. So, should we go to the next one? That was good, by the way, Dave. As I say, I don't think you're on anyway. Well, actually, before we go, alien experiences. Has anyone ever had an alien experience? I'll tell you the closest I've ever been to an alien experience, or the I did once thought I saw a UFO, to the degree that I was actually shitting myself. But it wasn't far off this, this kind of Dave's kind of story. But not, it's completely different. But you know what I mean? A similar kind of, it wasn't what you thought it was. But we had been, like, there's different parts to, I live on a council estate, but there's sort of, my road is sort of called one little bit, and then the other bit is called the estate, even though where I live is part of the, someone up the other end of the village from the posh end would say it's all the estate. My own road has its own sort of named bit, and then, what they call it. the green basically. So where I live's the green, and then up the estate. But it's all a council estate anyway. So we was up the estate, and I was having a baccy on my cousin's BMX, stood on the old trick nuts. A baccy is when you stand on the back, you know, you stood on the back. Or you sat on sometimes you sit on the seat and they stand up pedal. Don't know why I'm explaining that, but the American viewers might not know what a baccy is. Anyway, it was just getting, I must have been about 11 maybe. It was just getting dark. It was probably the summer holidays. I don't know. Could have been any fucking night really, in all honesty with us lot. But it was just getting dark. And we just came out this alleyway onto my road. And we both looked up. And there was people stood in the road as well looking at this fucking thing. Looked up and there was this cigar shaped, like a fat sort of, I don't know, maybe more like a watermelon kind of shape, glowing in the fucking sky. And I was so shocked I jumped off the back of the bike to just stand there and look at it. And then I started running down the road to get to my house because there was people stood outside my house looking at this thing. And I genuinely 100% thought that was a UFO. Until I realised it was a fucking hot air balloon blimp type thing. Yeah, fuck's sake. But up until we realised what it was, I genuinely thought that was a UFO. Yeah. You ever think you've seen a UFO or anything? I've done many a night staring up at the sky, drinking. One of my favourite things used to be to sit in my nan's back garden, which was next door, on a recliner, drinking, you know, lagers, tent supers or Strongbow super, something like that, with my mate Paul. And we would just stare up at the sky, watching the old satellites go past and talking about fucking stars and planets and the universe. And yeah, I used to love that. I could do that all night long. I could still do that now if there was, you know, if there was people willing to do it with me. But yeah, so I'm having a bit of a reminisce there. So how are you enjoying the video? Right, let's get another one going, shall we? So yeah, so it's this one, isn't it? I must have already got this one down. Oh, this is Z2.
So, this is my second story. It takes place a few years after the first one. And once again it was too near to the crossroads I mentioned in the first place. And yes, once again they were mucking around with the thing. There is something strange about that crossroads, I think, and the road that leads into town from it. They were modifying another crossroads further up, and 2 cases of poltergeist activity, one in a china shop, were reported. They even made the local papers. It is a rather old road, mind you, this time putting in a roundabout, building a new road. The barn had been demolished this time, as they were building affordable housing. Well, I suppose some people could afford them, in the field where it had been. This story takes place in a local school where the martial arts club, which I was a member of, met up to train. One summer's night after we had finished training, we all headed to either the boys' or girls' toilets, showers, to get changed before heading to the local pub for a pint or 2. Of course, this was perfectly normal. But things were to get interesting quite quickly. Us fellas had finished getting changed. We were waiting for the girls to finish getting ready, when all of a sudden there was a clattering sound and a chorus of shrieks from the girls' toilets. All but one of them came hurtling out, with looks of panic on their faces. We could hear the one who hadn't come out, whom I should call Lulu, swearing and threatening something with dire consequence if it dared to show itself. And if anything else got thrown at her, she would get some holy water and, as she said, wash you in the fucker. To be honest, she was one of those girls who was frightened of almost nothing alive, dead or in between. She did, however, have a fear of wasps apparently. Anyhow, all of us blokes rushed in to see what had happened. Lulu was stood there covered in talcum powder and surrounded by tins of deodorant. A couple of lipsticks, and a pair of sexy panties. Funny how you notice those things, isn't it? And a packet of condoms. One of the girls was going to a nightclub after the pub. I bet I can guess why she had those. She went quite red when we brought them out. Anyway, we half dragged Lulu into the corridor, where the other girls managed to brush most of the talcum powder off her. Once things had calmed down a bit, we finally got to hear what had happened. It seems they were nearly finished when a tin of deodorant for no apparent reason fell off one of the shelves in there. One of the girls said, "Ooh, it's a ghost." And Lulu laughed and quoted Ghostbusters, or possibly Goofy, saying, "I ain't afraid of no ghost." That's when the container of talcum powder flew off the same shelf and hit her in the back of the head, its top coming off and releasing a big cloud of powder, which Lulu got most of it. That was enough for the other girls, who immediately fled, shrieking in terror. Lulu, as I've said, didn't. This was of course very interesting, but as nothing else seemed to be happening, we all left and went to the pub. Of course, the shelf could have been a bit loose, which would explain the deodorant falling off. Not, however, the talcum powder flying off it. One of the other girls might have thrown it at Lulu for a laugh, but then the other girls were in front of Lulu at the time, so they couldn't have thrown it at the back of her head. By the way, I think all of the other stuff getting spread all over the floor was a result of Lulu going berserk with rage, flailing about, trying to hit whatever it was. Now, none of this type of thing ever happened again, the reasons for which could be that 1. They finished most of the work on the now roundabout by the end of the week and were just painting the lines on the road, or 2. That whoever had done the throwing believed everything that Lulu had been threatening it with, which I had every expectation she would have attempted, especially the washing bit. Or 3. It was all some strange series of accidents and coincidences. You can make your own minds up about that.
Thank you, Zed. Yeah, I like that one. Had a sort of a ring of carry to it, I thought. Not that the girl was doing any telekinesis, but you know what I mean, showers and all that. I think it's usually women in showers. Yeah, I wonder. Makes you wonder, don't it? What that could have been. Sorry, I got the old fucking hiccups. Every time I do a bloody live stream, it's either really dry mouth or hiccups, or itchy nose, which I have had actually. But luckily I've been able to itch it between the scratch it between the things. Yes, I don't know, Zed. Again, very interesting. Who knows? As you say, it could have been just the other girls doing a prank. But as you say, if she could see them, then how the hell would that happen? Yeah, definitely interesting thing to happen. Again, that voice sounded very much like me, but I swear it's yeah, very bizarre. Much deeper voice though. Right, should we get down to another one? But yeah, very interesting. Don't know. They're all going to be I don't know. Because if we did know, we would know, wouldn't we? As I say, never really experienced anything like that anyway. I don't think I'd want to. Right, is it this one again? Yeah. Right, number 12.
Hello everyone, happy Halloween. This is Carter from the Labrix channel, and I'm sorry if I sound a little weird because I have a cold right now, but so when I saw Mike was doing the Halloween video, I definitely wanted to have a story for it, but I couldn't really think of one until this morning when I watched his update. And I remembered about it was one time me and some of my friends, we were at the school at like 2 in the morning in the summer. And we were like doing stupid stuff, you know, kicking balls like against the walls of the school like as hard as we could, and it's all brick, so it'd like fly off and stuff. And one of our balls went on the roof, so well, we decided that we had to go get the ball on the roof, when really we just wanted to go on the roof. So we went up there, looked around, you know, climbed on stuff, climbed up some of the metal, like I don't know if they're actually like satellites, but it's like thin metal things. They're only actually like this big but tall. Climbed up the top of those, came down, you know, did stupid stuff, just looking around, exploring on top of the roof, because you know it's not every day you go on a school roof, so you want to make it last and look around. And then all of a sudden my friend Eli, he's like, are those people over there? And like way down towards the middle school, because you have like here's the main road, and closest to the main road you have the high school, which we were on, and then back there's a road that takes you from the main road back is the middle school. And there's a big bus loop between the middle school and the high school where we were. So we were on the end of the high school near that bus loop in the middle school. And in the middle of the bus loop, it looked like there was like I guess 6 people there, just sitting there. And my friend Eli was like, are those people over there? And I was like, no way. There won't be people here. It's 2 a.m, right? So we all stopped. We're sitting there waiting, just staring, right? Because it's dark. And there's a little light, so you can barely see. And it looks like there's the outline of like 6 people just standing there. So we're like, no, they can't be people. And my friend Jack is like, are they the cops or something? I was like, but they're just standing there, they're not doing anything. So we waited for it felt like forever. It was probably only like 5 minutes. And then my friend Eli again, he goes, are they coming towards us? And we all lean back around the corner of the building, because we're on the roof and the building goes up. So we're leaning around that corner, facing down towards where they were. And we're like, are they coming towards us? And no. I was like, there's no way there's people. It's probably just like shadows of trees. But it looked like those 6 figures in a group. They're just so slowly walking towards us. Like, not even like a normal walk, which would have seemed slow because we were so far, but like a slow shuffle. And so the entire time, they're coming towards us, like through the bus loop. And by the time they reached the edge of the bus loop, which is the sidewalk towards towards the high school, where we were, we can actually see, yeah, those are 6 people. And there's all grouped up like this, shuffling along the sidewalk. Not shuffling like to the side, but forward, but super slowly. And we're like, should we say anything? And I'm like, no, don't say anything to them. Are you crazy? Let's hide or whatever. Let's lay down here. So we lay down here, they walk by. They don't make any sound. Like, you can hear the little footsteps and stuff, but they don't make any sound. Like, they're not talking or anything to each other. And I'm thinking, like, are these cops? Are these school workers? Are they other kids just messing around? But they're walking by, and it looks like there's no colors. They're not wearing any colors. Like, it's like they're just wearing all black. So we're still on the roof. They're walking by super slowly, and we're all silent, obviously. We're still laying there looking down, scared, because we thought we were going to get in trouble by the police. And they don't say anything. They just keep walking. They don't talk to each other. I mean, like, they just keep slowly walking through. And they're all, we can't like make out any faces or anything because it's dark. And they don't make, the weirdest part is that they don't make like any sound. I know I said this already, but they don't talk to each other. They just slowly walk. And by the time they got to around the corner at the other end of the school, we jumped off and we got out of there because that was super freaky. Now I don't know if that's like paranormal. Doesn't really seem like it, but that was just really freaky, and I don't know how to explain it. So thanks, Mike, for having me in your video, and yeah, happy Halloween, everyone. Enjoy your night.
Thank you, Carter. That was a good one, that. I'm glad some of our American friends joined in as well. It's good seeing them in. How many Americans have we had so far? Was it 2? Maybe 3? Can't remember. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Again, black figures, black silent figures. Definitely a theme there, you know, to what comes out to people. And this one reminded me of something. This isn't my own story, and I wish if I did, well, obviously I didn't know, but if I'd have known, I wouldn't have minded talking to some of my relatives. Because what this reminded me of, I was picturing what I used to do as a teenager. I used to love going on the shed roof. Not the shed roof, the school roof, sorry. I used to go on my shed roof as well. We'd go on any roofs, in all honesty. But yeah, the school roof, sorry. We would, I don't think we ever went on there at night. But you talking about being on a school roof reminded me of when I used to go on a school roof. In fact, we used to go on the school roof so much, we opened up this hatch thing and even stored like stuff in there. We had bog rolls in there and, you know, handy things, bags of probably dog end tobacco, which is cigarette butt tobacco for smoking, stuff like that, maybe a spare lighter. All I can remember mainly is bog roll, because my mate always used to need a shit every time he went out. Every time we'd go out, he would need a shit. And every time he would take a shit, and it would be taking a shit down the woods, wiping his arse. I'm going on a tangent now. Wipe his arse with his boxer shorts and sling them in the bushes. Anyway, sorry. I could go on stories about him for fucking days. Right. That then reminded me of, I don't know why the school, well actually the reason the school may have reminded me, the last time I had a big get together with my family that wasn't a party was at the local school to commemorate my great granddad's death in World War One. While I was there, I was talking to my aunt, which is my dad's sister, and she was talking about my granddad, her father, my dad's father's book. He's got a little book of poems of this local area, properly published as well. It's got like a proper ISBN number and everything. It reminded me of that, and then it reminded me of, he's seen multiple paranormal events. One of them made me, again, it was doubly why I thought of yours, Carter, because what it was, he has seen Romans. You know, the classic thing of Romans marching. Sometimes they're in the air because they're walking across what would have been a bridge. Sometimes they're under the ground and like only half their body sticking out because the ground is now higher than it used to be. My granddad reckons he's seen marching Romans in this area. And for some reason, what you said, Carter, made me think of that. Just that slow shuffling, not those marching, but the sort of, I don't know, yours made me think of that, Carter, though. Yeah, that must be very weird. Makes you wonder, though, don't it? What I'll try and do next time, I'll try and get the stories that my granddad told. Wouldn't be hard to just ask my aunt. So yeah, fascinating stuff really. Was that all of that one? Yes. Right. About 3/4 of the way through now. So this is PCF2. So this must be Pistol Crossbow Fan number 2.
Hi everyone, me again, Pistol Crossbow Fan. So I've got 2 stories for you. The first one, again, involves myself and my brother. When we, oh nice bit of lightning there, when we were living at home, and this would have been mid to late 70s. Still living in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight, and we were of an age by this time where we could be quite happily left alone, because we were both sensible anyway, by our mum and dad, whilst they went out for a little while to get some shopping or something like that, which is what happened on this particular occasion. But I do remember they came back from the shopping to find us both sat outside on the step leading to the front door, and they couldn't quite understand why we were sat there, because there was no reason for us to be sat outside. Anyway, when they asked us, we told them. And basically we were both indoors at the time, downstairs, and we heard from somewhere a very loud noise all of a sudden. It sounded like an alarm going off. And after giving it some thought, just for a few seconds, we identified it as the typical 1970s teas maid that they had by the side of their bed. So we went upstairs, and sure enough, there it was by the side of their bed. The light on top, which is an aid to help wake you up in the morning once the tea is ready, was blinking on and off, and this very loud alarm buzzer noise was going on and off, and which was a bit weird in itself. So we went to switch it off at the plug, and not only was it switched off at the plug, but it was actually unplugged, and this thing didn't take batteries. So basically that's why we were sat outside. I think that's quite freaky. Anyway, that was just a short one. The other one that I'm going to tell you now relates to just me, and it was in 1989, if I remember rightly. There's a little village only about a mile away from Ventnor called Bonchurch, and in this village there is, well, I suppose you'd call it a mansion house, which had been bought by a company that was using it for activity holidays for schools and youth groups and field studies, that type of place. And it was called the East Dean Centre, if you want to look it up, in Bonchurch. Very old building, some parts of it sort of at least 400 years old. Quite a bit of history to the place. It's been used over the years as many different things. There were nuns there at one time, there were monks there, lots of different things. It was a family home at one point many years ago. The English poet Swinburne lived there for quite a few years, and his friend used to come to visit, and that was Charles Dickens. So it's got a lot of history to it. Anyway, they were advertising for somebody to teach the various sports and activities, and because I had a history in lots of different sports, even though I wasn't very old, I was involved with archery clubs and karate and all sorts of things. I went along for the job. Was very pleased when I got the job. So that's what I was going to do, teach these various sports and activities. And also, because it was a live-in job, which suited me fine at the time, be what was known as the duty person. So basically, of a night time, if any of the groups that were staying there had a problem, they were told on arrival which door to come and knock on, so that I could help them, which obviously was quite important, particularly with those groups, because we had a lot of foreign groups during the summer weeks and months, where really the English was very poor. So they needed to get someone that could assess the situation and then deal with it appropriately. So that was my job, duty person and teaching the various sports and activities. On my first day there, I was told not to do anything work-wise, but just to wander around, because it's quite a big building, to get my bearings. I'd been told when I'd mentioned to someone that I was going to be working there, "Oh, look out for the ghost." I said, "What do you mean the ghost?" Apparently there was a ghost of a monk that was seen if you were outside and looked up at the window of room 21. Sometimes you could see this ghost monk looking back at you. Sort of brushed it off really, didn't think any more of it. Anyway, bearing in mind I'd never been in this building ever in my life before, I just had a good old wander around. All thoughts of ghosts and monks and things completely had gone out of my head by now because I was concentrating on doing my job. Anyway, I walked up this particular corridor. I didn't know where I was going. The rooms, well, if they were numbered, I didn't take any notice, so it wasn't as if I could logically work out where I was heading. But I just knew that when I got to the end of this corridor, there was going to be room 21, and I don't know how I knew that. Anyway, of course, this brought up memories of this ghost story. So I got to the end, sure enough, there was room 21. And I thought, well, I'm not just going to stand here, turn around and walk away. I'm going to open the door, because face your fears sort of thing. So I opened the door, and it was just like any of the other rooms. 4 or 5 bunk beds, great big heavy cast iron ones, a sink and 1 or 2 other little cupboards for the kids to put their clothes in, and that was it. Didn't give it another thought. Anyway, I started my job, did the old duty person bit, had 1 or 2 people knock on the door, leaders knock on the door saying, "Can you tell me where so and so is?" or that sort of thing. And then over the space of perhaps 3 or 4 weeks, foreign groups both times, one was I think French and the other Italian if I remember rightly. Oh, excuse me. One night there was a knock at the door, quite an urgent knock at the door, and it was a French lady. And she spoke very good English, and she explained to me that they had a problem in one of the rooms with one of the kids. And as she was showing me where this room was, she was explaining to me what had happened. And apparently they'd been laying in bed, one obviously on top of the other in these bunk beds, and the lower child had used his feet to push the top bunk up an inch or so, and he thought it was very funny just to keep letting it down again quickly. What he didn't realise the last time he did it was that this child at the top bunk had put his hands right at the point where the 2 bunks met, and actually got his finger almost severed because of the weight of this, plus the weight of his own body of course, on his finger, when the bunk bed was let down again by this one underneath. So I had that to deal with. Guess which room it was in? Room 21. Anyway, that was all sorted out, and then lo and behold, a couple of weeks after that, we had another grouping of Italians, and frantic banging on my door early hours of the morning, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, and was told that they had a serious medical problem with one of their children, apparently, who had gone to open the window in the morning, rather than use any sort of window opening device, just put their hand on the glass and pushed it, and their hand went straight through the glass, and then they pulled it back rather quickly. So from probably the wrist up to about halfway up to their elbow was just wide open. And when I got there, they were laying in the bath. No one seems to know what to do. Fortunately, I had some rudimentary first aid training, because I had also been in the fire service by this time. And so sorted that out, elevated it, etc., wrapped it up, called for the ambulance. and suddenly realised we were stood in room 21. Now you tell me what that's all about. No other incidents in the year or so that I was there, but both incidents happened in room 21.
Nice one, Pistol Crossbow fan. 2 for 1 there. Cheers for that, mate. I'm pretty sure. Do you come from Pistol Crossbow fan? Do you come from the same place Stu comes from? You would know. You would have seen his other video. If you do, that's fucking weird. That you yeah, that's saying something there. I may be getting wires crossed there. It's hard to do that while I'm live streaming. I can't take everything in, but I'm pretty sure there was connections some of the places, wasn't there? Yeah, that's saying something there. So 2 sort of events. That was the first little story anyway. That was quite similar to Stu's as well. And then the other one, yeah. What a weird place that must be, especially like to have a sort of haunted room. You know what I mean? There's always haunted rooms, but an individual, a bit like in, The Shining, a haunted room sort of thing. Yeah. Board that fucking door up if I owned that. Yeah, thank you again. That was very interesting. I like that one. So, where are we? Should we go straight on to another one? Not that I haven't got anything to talk about with Pistol Crossbow fans, but some of them sort of, you don't have a lot to say because they sort of just say it all themselves, if that makes sense. Yeah. Right, S Wood. Go to the next one, shall we?
On the night of September 27th, the ghost hunt group that I am a part of, Derby City Paranormal, had an investigation at the Monroe House in Hartford City, Indiana. Years ago there had been a TV show that had an investigation at this house, and during their investigation one of the members had found human remains in the crawl space. Apparently the coroner's report showed that the skeletal remains were quite old and no further investigation was done, so the identity of the remains remained unknown and the remains were given a proper burial. Claims at this house have been the sound of footsteps, voices, doors closing on their own, people getting touched, shadow people and apparitions. During our investigation we experienced a door shutting on its own several times and we were unable to debunk it. Nothing we could do, aside from bumping the door, would cause it to close. There was no breeze, the floors were solid, the door frame was solidly built, but the door would swing closed with nobody around it. Another time while we were in the blue room, one of our cameras picked up the shadow about 2 feet tall that appeared to be coming out of the floor. I went to where we perceived it to be and I could easily feel a temperature difference that coincided with where its head was, although our thermometers showed no difference in temperature. It is possible that the figure itself was a little closer to the camera than where I was feeling around, which could possibly explain why I detected no temperature difference with a laser thermometer. I do not have that footage, and at this time I have not reviewed my video footage. We also got flashlights to turn on and off on demand, and as we were packing up we heard a baby crying over the baby monitor that we had set up in a room upstairs. In the basement, however, we had footage of a stick figure on the SLS camera. The SLS camera uses a mapping system like those on the Nintendo Wii or a PlayStation and can show anomalies, in the form of a stick figure, or other shapes, but the anomaly must be within range of the sensor. While we were down there, one of the girls in our group asked if anything was behind her as she was feeling something touching her head and shoulders. I was sitting across from her taking pictures with a modified camera that showed full spectrum. I was using the IR light from another camera to avoid using a flash. The first picture shows members of our group just before she had started to feel something. The second picture shows her with the flashlight after feeling it touch her. At first I was thinking that the shadow behind her was her silhouetted by the light. But in the third picture, the shadow is still there. She then stated that she was starting to feel sick and getting real uncomfortable. It was at that point that the batteries in the SLS camera died, the batteries in another device died, and the batteries in my camera died. All of this occurred within about 5 minutes. We left the area right then and she went outside and vomited and felt better almost immediately. That night, over the course of 9 hours, I went through 12 batteries in my camera and had to change the battery in my camcorder 3 times.
Thank you, Steve. Bloody hell, yeah, that sounds like one of those sort of, like a proper haunted house type thing. You know, like a well-known one, like the Enfield house or something. Yeah, bloody hell. Sounds like there's a hell of a lot going on there. What's it like to investigate these things? So I know there's quite a lot of you lot who investigate these kind of things, aren't there? Sorry, I've got bloody hiccups again. I've obviously never done anything like that. I have been in places that are supposed to be haunted. Well, I say that. Yes, I'll tell you where I've been that's supposed to be haunted. I've been West Wickham Caves. Now they're supposed to be haunted. Didn't experience anything. If you ever get near there, they're well worth going in. And well, I don't definitely know it's haunted, but I have been in a very old derelict house that was pretty scary. But I don't know if that's just because it was a derelict house and other people would say it's haunted. Don't know whether it was. And I tell you what, it was. You never ever wanted to be on your own in any of the rooms though. But then that may have been because I was 12. Yeah, you know, 12 with a very vivid imagination. But yeah, that was a fascinating place to be as a kid. That old derelict house. It's derelict house and shop, and massive gardens, and multiple sheds, and everything was still full of everything. So the house was just, you know, just left with all of the stuff in it. A lot of it had been smashed up. But sorry, I was getting on a tangent then. So back to Steve's video. Yeah, I like the use of those lights. That's, you know, that's sort of a very high tech way to do these things, isn't it, Steve? You said that was you doing it, wasn't it? Yeah, and I see what you mean about that shadow, because initially that shadow looks like her shadow, but it can't be her shadow because her shadow is behind her for a start, and when the light's on, it's still there, and also it's not the other person's shadow because you can see the other person's shadow. Even weirder. Yeah, as I say, that seems like one of these sort of massively haunted places, you know, like a proper famous sort of haunting. But do you do that kind of stuff a lot, Steve, if you're watching? Right, that was that one, wasn't it? We did that one, so we've got two more to go, 2 more stories to go. So Stug, this one says.
This happened last year in the month of November. The power in my house had gone out because of a storm that had happened during the day. It was roughly 9 p.m. and I was lying in bed as I was bored and had nothing to do, and as I was laying there, I could see this flashing light outside of my window which lasted about 2 seconds. I had the blinds drawn, so whatever it was bright. I initially thought that it was lightning, but there was no thunder. It then happened a second time, but this time there was a strange sound accompanying the light. I can only describe the sound as 2 low-pitch beeps. I got out of bed to tell my father about this, and as I walked into the living room where he was, I could see the flashing light through the living room window, which he also noticed. I was weirded out at this point because how could it have moved from one side of the house to the other in 5 seconds? It stopped for a while and then it happened again, with that weird sound, but every time we peeked through the window we could see nothing at all. It happened yet again, but this time it moved from window to window while flashing. We thought it was maybe someone with a drone messing about, but we would have heard the propellers and surely would have seen it when we looked out. It had stopped when it reached one of the windows near the back of the house. We went outside and waited about 10 minutes to see if we could spot anything, but there was nothing, so we headed back inside. It happened again about 2 hours later, but this time it started to flash rapidly around the house, window to window, and then suddenly stop at the window it stopped at previously. A few minutes later we could hear that there was something moving along the roof of the house from one side to the other. It wasn't very loud, but noticeable. It stopped in about 30 seconds and we never heard of it again that night. Whatever it was, it frightened the shit out of me and my dad that night.
Nice one, Stug. Yeah, I wonder what the fuck that was. Yeah, I don't know, as you say, if it was a drone you would have heard it. And the weird beeping noises, low pitched beeps. I haven't got a clue. Sounds, if it was anything, I'm not saying this is what it was, but if you was trying to think rationally, or not rationally, I don't mean rationally, I mean, we're talking about paranormal things, some kind of alien type of thing, I suppose. I don't really know. I suppose there are things it could have been, but as you say, you would just assume it was those things if you could explain it was those. As with all of these things, the reason they go unexplained is because you can't explain them. If you could explain them, you would just say, yes, this, and this. I hope everyone's liking the stream, by the way. I forgot to say it the whole time. Luckily you lot have been doing it for me. But yeah. How many likes we got? I don't know why I'm looking on there. Fucking dickhead. It's a habit of looking on there. Right. No, I won't do this too long, because otherwise I'll be... No, I won't bother, because I don't want to be on the phone all the time, because it's be a bit boring for you lot to watch. But you can always come back, I can always come back and look when the video's playing. So yeah, did we have another alien? Oh, that was Electro, wasn't it? So, looks like last one now, and as I say, I hope you've all been enjoying these videos.
This story takes place before the other two in the mid-1980s. In a way, it's a bit difficult to say when and how this story starts, as, in a way, it has two beginnings, but I'll begin at the point where I became involved. And so it began just after a local jeweller's was burgled one Friday night and the thieves got away with a very large haul. The next day, myself and some friends were sitting in a local coffee bar talking, when another friend came in and asked if we'd heard about the robbery. We told him we had. He then proceeded to tell us he'd been walking home that night from a local wine bar where he worked. His walk took him past a piece of common land behind one of the local schools, where he'd seen two men in there, one of them whom appeared to be digging a hole. He couldn't see just how large the hole was, but he thought it wasn't big enough to suggest they were doing something with drains or electrical cables. We pointed out that it was unlikely that they'd been messing around with that sort of thing at 2 in the morning on a piece of common anyway. That's my point, he said. I think it might have been the burglars burying the jewels, meaning to pick them up when things quieted down. I thought it was more likely they were burying a dead dog or cat, to be truthful, but the others were taken with the idea of buried loot. So it was decided that we'd go there that evening. They had to pinch some spades and stuff from their parents' sheds whilst they were engrossed in some television programme, and investigate the spot where he'd seen the men digging. So that evening we made our way to the common together, with a pretty young girl I was friendly with at the time, plus one of the other lads' girlfriends, who had insisted on joining us. Now I must say this common had a reputation of being a strange place. A couple of years before, an 18-year-old girl had gone missing, and the last anyone had seen or heard of her was when her friend saw her talking to a young man with long brown hair. She'd left her parents a letter saying that they were leaving and she'd contact them later to tell them where she was. As she was 18, the police had little to no interest when she failed to contact her parents after a month or so, saying that she was an adult. So what she did, providing she broke no laws, was up to her. The locals, though, had different ideas. They were convinced that she had been raped and murdered by the fellow with the long hair, and that he'd buried her body, probably on the common. Since then, dog walkers on the common had reported seeing strange lights and funny human-shaped shadows around the place. These stories didn't worry myself or my friends in the slightest. We called it a load of bollocks and cast scorn on anyone who thought the stories were true. If anything, we'd reckon she'd run off with a roadie from a metal band or something else. Also, I must state that my friends had no interest or belief in the paranormal at all, and would occasionally take the piss out of me for my interest in it. In fact, these were the kind of lads who were scared of nothing, who'd walk into the roughest bars in town, sure in the knowledge that if anyone started something, they'd make the bastards regret it. Anyway, back to the story. So there we were, on the common, staring down a steep slope that went down about 30 feet to a patch of trees, which were about 10 feet from the roadside fence. On being told, that's where I saw him, down there. We went carefully down the slope, which was covered in a layer of loose soil, and was thus a bit slippery. Myself and Mabel sat down, lit our cigarettes, and prepared to watch the fun. She thought they'd only dig 2 feet down before giving up, but I thought they'd go at least 3 feet deep, if not more, being somewhat stubborn fellows. At first they wandered around a bit, looking for some disturbed ground to start on, thinking that would be a good place to try first. It was quite dark under the trees, which made it a bit less easy, but after 5 minutes or so, they found a likely spot and started digging. My friend's girlfriend, standing on one side, telling them how to do it. At first they all went at it at once, but they just got in each other's way, and decided to take in turns, with only 2 digging at a time. The first 2 went at it like mad things, and got the hole about 3 foot wide and 2 foot deep, in short order, before they were knackered, and stepped back to let the next 2 have a go. That's when it happened. A small piece of the ground moved, upwards. They all stopped what they were doing and stared curiously at it as it very slowly continued to rise upwards. Equally slowly their faces started to turn a bit pale. Just then one of the lads stepped back a bit and blocked most of my view. I did however see the sides of the small mound suddenly increase the speed of its upward movement. Then one of the boys gave a low moan of horror, mixed with a sort of unspeakable terror. That was it. As one man and girl, they broke and ran. As they charged past me, I grabbed the arm of the girl I was with and joined en route. I should point out that at that moment I had not the slightest idea what it was they were running from, and was working purely on the principle that if whatever it was down there was horrible enough to make those particular lads run, then I, for one, didn't fancy hanging around to make its acquaintance. We were about 2/3 of the way up the slope when my friend's girlfriend slid down the slope past me, shrieking in terror. I glanced back and saw her come to a rest about 3 foot below Mabel. I immediately ignored her and carried on up the slope, dragging the confused Mabel, who kept asking, "What's happening? What's happening?" behind me. You may be wondering why I didn't help the other girl. 3 reasons. 1, I saw it as her boyfriend's job to rescue her. 2, I never did like her much. And 3, I had the idea that whatever was after us might pause in the pursuit to butcher her and leave the rest of us time to escape. Pretty soon we all reached the top of the slope, including my friend's girlfriend, who I must admit could shift a bit when she was scared. Seeing that nothing else was coming up the slope, I asked what had happened. The dead girl's hand. It reached out of the ground and grasped us with fleshless fingers, was the reply. I admit I did feel a shiver run down my spine when I heard that. However, once we'd realised that there was nothing chasing us, and we had a calming smoke, it came to us that the spades had been left behind, which meant we'd have to go back down there and get them. Otherwise there'd be trouble over their loss. So slowly and very carefully we went back down the slope. Everything seemed quiet at the bottom, although there was still a slight mound of loose earth on the ground. We were just picking up the tools when one of the lads was moving around looking for a trowel he'd dropped, when the mound exploded upwards in a shower of dirt and small stones to reveal the ultimate horror. A half-buried dead branch with 4 twigs sticking out of it. What had happened, of course, was that someone had trodden on the end of the thing, which had made the other end push upwards through the soil. Though to be fair, the twigs did look a bit like fingers at first glance, especially in the dark shadow from the trees. There's nothing much more to say about it really, other than my friend's girlfriend had a very long talk with him about why he didn't try to rescue her. And the girl who disappeared, she turned up on her parents' doorstep 3 years later. As their neighbours put it, looking something like Boudicca would have recognised, and dragging a screaming 4-year-old brat that looked remarkably like Stig at a dump behind her. She'd run off with a fella she'd been seeing to a sort of hippie commune, lived in a rundown barn with 6 other couples. Oh well, it takes all sorts.
Ah, fucking hell, Zed. I like that. Nice one, Zed. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I can totally see. You know what? I could picture myself doing all that stuff as well. Yeah, we used to like going doing weird things like that. I'll tell you what, my dad had some really, really good ghost stories that was that kind of thing. I so badly wish I could remember them. And obviously it's too late now. I'll have to ask Malk if he remembers them. He has a better memory than me. But, yeah. What it was, look, see, my dad used to have some stories of, similar stories of, you know, working up to something and then it was suddenly... The one I remember, but it was about a bloke being chased. Maybe it was my dad. I think it was my dad saying it. That he was in the woods. Oh yeah, I can vaguely remember it now. Oh God, so I remember being sat in the van with him, asking him to tell us a ghost story in the dark down his yard. And he told us this story of... Because he was telling us about the actual area we was in. You know, saying, oh, I went up the path, that path up there. And he'd seen these red eyes looking at him. Now, there's a lot more to this story than this. He saw these 2 red eyes looking at him. So he started running away. There's a lot more build up to this. This is just all I can remember. But he said he was in the woods and he could see these 2 red eyes staring at him. So he started running, and all of the time he was running, he could hear footsteps behind him, right behind him, running fast as he could, even till he got in the van and drove off, and he could still hear running next to the van. And then I remember the punchline of it was, not the punchline, but it turned out that the red eyes was an owl, and the running behind him was his braces had slipped off, and they was tapping on the floor as he ran away. Oh, I fucking love that story. I so badly wish I could remember it properly. Hopefully Mark will remember it, but yes. One of those things, you know, too late now. But my dad used to have quite a few good ghost stories. And there's a couple of family, like, the ghost stories that go around my family, that used to get told. Like, they're fictional ones, but yeah. But thank you for that, Zed. I like that. That was a good one. Oh, I've just noticed this tape. Actually, I think it's got something else on it. Let's have a look.
Don't wanna go into the night. The temperature's falling, freezing our senses with fright. something coming, baby. It don't look like to me. Better get out of here pretty quick if you like. Hey, don't expect me to hang around. I'm no hero, but you can stay if you like. You love